So, recognition first. So, Carol White hit consultant in the past week, which is cool. She's from South Dakota, so she owns a gym out there. So exciting. New fun stuff for her. So that's awesome. And then make sure you put, if you have launches, in the comment box. We're trying to keep track of launch parties. I'm going to one. Actually, Amanda Svensson's hosting one this Thursday, so I'm going to that. So if you have any other ones, put it in the chat. But tonight so a lot of people coming back from celebration are feeling like they need some help with what to say. Like I hear this all the time. Like, okay, I don't know what to say now. Like, this is what they said. I don't know what to say. Okay, they want some information. What do I say? And even though we have like our ISOLife plan that has exactly what to say in there, I feel like if you don't put a little personality into it, if you follow the scripts and like sending the initial message of the script, that's pretty straightforward, right? But then once they're like, sure, send me the info. Does anybody ever get that? Sure, send me some info. And you're like, okay, what do I send? Like, okay, they said yes. What do I send? Like, how do I not screw this up, right? Like, do you guys ever feel that way? Does anybody ever feel that way? Yeah, okay. And so then you're like, okay, I don't know what to send. I don't know what to do now. And so in the ISOLife plan on page 5, it goes over exactly like what you would do next. But what I want to point out and what I want to cover tonight is really making sure you're personalizing that to tailor it to the person. Okay. So do you guys have your ISOLife books? If you do, open it up to page 5. I promise I'm not going to read to you out of ISOLife plan tonight. But if you go to page 5, the first thing that if they're like, after you've done your post, the first thing that they ask you to do is, like, what interested you in wanting to take a look? Like, oh, cool. So you're interested in more information. Like, what interests you, And the reason that this is so important is because you want to make sure that you're not sending information to somebody that doesn't apply or meet their pain point and their need. And this is a mistake that I see making people think that network marketers are weird, or that we're like, whatever. Like, people make up stories about their opinions about how they've been approached by something. And I think a lot of times, like, when we're not stopping to figure out what is the problem they actually have and what is the solution that they need, one of two things is going to happen. They're either, number one, they're not going to realize that Isagenix may be a solution for them if you're offering them a solution that they don't need. For example, I've had a lot of people that I assumed that what they needed was health, but really what they wanted was money. So isn't that sad that like they left the opportunity and then they went and joined other network marketing companies? And I was like, what the heck? Like, what were you doing that for? I had a solution for you. And one of them is a hairdresser that I went to, and I noticed that she had like some Arbonne stuff out. And so I kind of casually asked her about that, and I was just getting to know her. And I didn't really push too much on the financial opportunity of Isagenix. I pushed on the fact that, like, oh, are you liking Arbonne? Is it meeting your health needs? Like, why, what were you hoping it would do for you? Has it done that for you? And then I found out a few weeks later that she joined Rodan and Fields. And she was like, oh yeah, I joined Rodan because their comp plan was better. And I like really need this to make me money. So I don't necessarily consider it a completely closed door, but I missed that window of our compensation plan being so much better than both of those companies. Well, I guess I don't know Arbonne's financial plan, but I missed that opportunity because I didn't match like what she was looking for with the right solution. So when someone asks you, yeah, sure, send me the info, your very next question needs to be, well, what are you interested in? Or what, if you could change one thing about your health or your finances, what would it be? Like asking them a question, like, what would you change? Because, and that's kind of what it says on page 5. It basically, like halfway through the page, what they tell you to say is like, I'm glad you commented. One of the things that excites me the most about this system is, and you fill in the blank, this may or may not be for you, but if it is, what would you love to see happen? So they use the words like, what would you love to see happen, as the script. And I feel like it's really easy, especially for me with these types of plans. Like when it used to be called the 90-day game plan, I was like, cool. So like, are they going to be a training on each page and what I'm supposed to do? And like, are we going to fill it out together? Like sometimes I think we can overlook the meat of stuff inside of here because we're waiting for someone to tell us what to do. So don't just go to the first page of the script of what to send, like actually dig into this stuff the rest of the stuff that it's telling you. So once you know, like once you start that conversation with the person about like, what would you change about your health? Like Isagenix has to be off the table because right then you're just connecting. So you're talking about like, well, what do you mean? Like, tell me more about that. Like you want to really get them to open up about whatever it is that they can uncover for their health. Okay. So, on page 8, they actually give you some ideas about ways you can do this. Like saying, how long have you had this goal? Why is this important to you? You know, if someone says, well, I'm interested because I see people posting all the time about how they have so much more energy in Isagenix. Okay, so tell me about your energy. Like, where do you feel like it's lacking? Or tell me more about that. You might get all the way to the point where they're like really opening up to you about some really significant things that are going on in their life. And that is what we want for people, right? Like we want to get to that point because that's where the trust is, you guys. So if we don't have the trust, like the sale of Isagenix or the transaction of them becoming a customer is not going to happen unless we build that trust. So we have to pause once we are like in the mode of chatting with them about, well, what is it that you would love to see? Okay. How long have you been struggling with this? Oh my gosh, that's really frustrating. And this is where the follow-up is so important because a lot of people like don't keep up with those messages, realizing that those messages are you in the enrollment process, right? Like, have you ever had a message that you've been chatting with someone on Facebook about something and then all of a sudden it drops off and then they post something and you go back to Messenger and realize that like 3 months ago, you never circled back to them about how they're doing after their baby was born? Or like, has that ever happened to anybody or has that just happened to me? Okay. And you're like, oh my gosh, I like totally missed an opportunity here. It happened to me today. Actually, I saw this girl post that I hadn't seen come up in my newsfeed in a while. And now that Facebook took away lists, I'm like drowning in Facebook right now. And so she like hasn't come up in my newsfeed in a while. And so I went to Messenger to see what was the last thing that we chatted about. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen her face in a while. And it was like 4 months ago where we were talking about intermittent fasting. And I literally had not followed up with her. So like, imagine where she could be at in her health right now if I had followed up with her questions. I must have posted about intermittent fasting or something, and we started on a conversation about it. So in these moments of really digging into their pain points, like this is where the scripts are awesome. But if you just follow these scripts, you're going to sound like a robot and you're not going to connect with them. So you need to like use the script at this point for its value, but realize that you have to put that human connection into it. And I just listened to a podcast recently, a leadership podcast, and they said that it was a Craig Groeschel leadership podcast. And he was talking about how there's this huge research study about leadership and that the number, like the top things that people want to see in a leader is that they want to be like seen and heard and recognized. And so think about like your people, like all they want is to be seen, heard, and recognized. And so that goes for anybody that you enroll, like noticing that they've lost weight on the product and shouting them out, or people that like tonight a gal I was thinking about this gal that I met at the park who's kindergartner. Her first kid is going into kindergarten on Thursday with my daughter. And in my head, I made a mental note, like, okay, on Thursday morning, I'm going to send her a message to be like, hey girl, happy first day of school for your, that's a big deal for a mom when it's like your first kid going off to school. It's a big deal, right? And so, but I have to like intentionally write that down because I won't naturally, and most people won't naturally remember every single detail of everyone's life. But that's like what Naomi, if she's not on here, Naomi always like said like #extra. Like that was like my favorite thing about Naomi. But it's like remembering and inserting those little extras into the people, into interjecting it into this process of enrollment, right? And so then after you really fully understand their pain point and their problem, and Mike tells me about this all the time. So my husband does sales, and okay, you guys, if you think selling a value pack is hard, literally he sells projects that are between like $100,000 and $2 million. Imagine trying to sell something that's $2 million versus us selling like, so when he hears people having trouble about the value pack, he like laughs because he's like, oh my gosh, I wish all I had to do was sell something that's $600, like, so he gets it, but he talks all the time about like, you don't talk about numbers, you don't talk about packs until you know the pain and the solution that you're providing. And he has taught me that. And that equates to like his job in construction. So it certainly equates to our job with helping people with their health, right? And so after you kind of know their pain point, that's when we get to the point where you're like, okay, I understand. I think I understand what you're looking for. Like what I hear you saying is that you are like really struggling with energy. If I could show you a way, right? We've heard that before. If I could show you a way to feel better and have more energy, like, would you be interested in looking at it? So who agrees that finding all that meat in between the first message you send and then now I'm about to send a ISA movie, like that's a lot of stuff that happened between those two, right? But a lot of people, what they're doing is someone saying like, oh, you're reaching out with your first message and then they're saying, yeah, send me the info. And you're like, boom, ISA movie. Well, you've missed this entire window of connection that person needs to feel attached to you, to trust you, to feel understood, to feel valued, to feel heard. And if you miss that window, when you send that ISA movie, there is like little to no depth in their heart about what that means. Like when we watch an ISA movie, we get like cheered up and we get all emotional about it because we have this giant emotional relationship with Isagenics. They do not. So just sending that movie without the context of that relationship is so vital because likely they may not enroll with you. And we all know that everyone's going to hear about Isagenics. And so they're going to probably enroll with the person that they feel the most emotionally connected to versus the person who's just sending them a link. So does that help at all as far as like that piece of it, like what to, when they say, yeah, sure, send me the info, like what to do, what questions do you guys have about that? Or comments? I'd love comments. Brian, I always feel like you have a good comment.
I mean, I think that's so right on because immediately, because you want to get to like the solutions so fast, right? So you want to be like, I'm just going to guess what they need right now and give it to them because I'm going to serve them. And to serve them, I have to give them something right now. So this is a great learning about digging a little, investigating, and being a really good question asker. And you can even say within those questions, like, I want to serve you in the best way possible, so I need to understand what it is that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And have that conversation because you are telling them that you want to serve them in the best way possible. And then you take away that stigma of just trying to sell, mm-hmm. and really being someone who's trying to help.
Yeah. Jill says, that this information is valuable. And Jill, you're not alone. I used to do that too. And in fact, sometimes I still catch myself when I'm in a hurry, like wanting to hurry up and quickly send the tool because I'm like rushing it. I'm rushing the process. And that's why I'm teaching on this, right? Like we all pretty much teach the things that we've experienced. So if you've experienced this, like you're in good company. Like the person helping you with this right now has literally done this. And so this is something that like, as you learn, like this is what's going to be helpful for you to like help with your people too. Like that duplication of like, hey, I learned this and this doesn't work so well. So let's, dive a little deeper here. Good. Okay. I love that, Brian. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or?
I have a question, Gretchen.
Mm-hmm.
Say you say to someone, would you be willing to take a look at this? Like you do the initial thing and they're like, sure, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And then you're like, okay, which of these things, you say, like if you could change anything about your health or finances, what would it be? And they're like, oh, I don't know, nothing. Like, I mean, sometimes I do, they're like willing to take a look, but then they're not willing to like go deep with you, or they're just like, well, I'm just looking at it for you. Like, what do you do? Or do you ever get people who are like, oh, I don't know, just send me something? Like, what do you do if they don't give you a real answer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it depends on, I mean, this is just me personally, and I'd love to know what you and everyone else says too, but I feel like it depends on the context of knowing that person. Like, if I know them really well, I could be like, well, I know you love your job. So, you know, but I also know that you've been telling me you want to get a new car. So like, I could see how this could maybe fit into your life, XYZ. Like, I will maybe offer a real life example of something that how it could fit. But then I always follow it up with like, is that something that you see for yourself, or am I way off base? Like, this book I'm reading right now from an FBI hostage negotiator, it's a really good book. He talks about how in hostage negotiations, you always want to try to get people to say no for an answer, because no is a very safe feeling. And so if you say to a person in that situation, like, this is how I see it for you, but I could be way off. Am I way off? And if if I'm like, is that true for you? Or do you see that being true for you? Then they could be like, well, no. And then now their guard is down. They're in control. They feel good. And it's super interesting. Like, I'm going to use it on Mike. Watch. So I already told him, I'm like, don't read this book. So I have some tricks on you. Okay, so that's one way, if I know them. If I don't know them at all and like it's a stranger on Instagram, then I will literally say, well, it's really hard for me to offer you information because I literally don't know you well enough to know how this could help you. And it sounds like things are going pretty well, so maybe you don't need this. And it's funny, when you say that to someone and you offer them the opportunity to say no to you and reject you, like you literally are like offering them a way to reject you. Almost always, in my experience, they've been like, well, I wouldn't say it's perfect. I mean, I guess I could use some help with, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's what's worked for me. I don't know if anybody else has any tips about what's worked for them.
That's gold, Gretchen. I think, you know, to answer Allison's question, you could also start to give the examples. So I would say something like, isogenics is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For example, some people love it for weight wellness. Others love it for the energy they get to finally clear that brain fog. I don't know if that's you. Some people love it for performance and getting fit in the gym, or, you know, and then maybe you start to evoke an answer from them that's a little more specific.
Yes, that's super good. No, I mean, this is exactly what I wanted to hear, and that is gold. Like Barbie said, those are awesome. So because I feel like the instinct that I have, just if you can't hear me, the instinct that I have in that moment is, you know, if they're like, oh, I don't know, nothing, like you still don't send the iSamovie. You're not like, oh, here, we'll just check it out. Like, you really get something from them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Otherwise it's a waste of time, in my opinion, because after reaching out to nearly 1,000 people, I have like internal auditing data that I know works and doesn't work for me. And maybe some of this stuff works for other people, but I know for me it doesn't work. So why would I waste their time or mine in just sending stuff that I know isn't going to work for me?
Yeah. No, that's really good.
I think it reminds me of the phrase slow down to speed up. Like if you're speeding up to just send the iSamovie, you're going to slow down your business and your growth because you're not taking the time, like you were saying earlier. It was genius taking the time to really get to those points, because then when you send the iSamovie, they're going to have that emotional connection hooked, and they're going to be ready to. They're going to want to buy. Mm-hmm. You're really speeding up your overall process. Like running most marathon sprinters, and there's runners on here, don't sprint out of the gates for the first 2 miles. Like if you do that, you're going to burn yourself out. You know, in order to get the best time, you pace yourself and you put in the hard, long work, and you have a better time at the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
Brian's waving, like maybe he tried to do that. Yeah. And it's just it's a learning experience. Like a first-time runner wouldn't know how their body's going to react halfway through the race, and they go, "Oh my God!" So this is what you're a runner telling us, like, don't do that. Here are some good steps to pace yourself along your run. That's how I think.
Yeah, I like what Barbie said in the comments. If you don't go deep, it's like throwing something to the wall and hoping it sticks. And we've all done that at least. And I will say, like, my biggest, like, I feel like, you know, we all find the method that works for us. And if someone is like, sure, I want more info, if they're local, I try to set up a coffee date with them to do exactly what you're saying. If they're not local, you know, I'll try to get on the phone with them. But do you find that you just can go back and forth on this, or do you end up getting on the phone, or do some people just like you just text the whole time?
Well, I know for me, I'd love to know what everybody else thinks in the comments, but I know for me, it also depends again on the person, right? Like I had an enrollment this week. We didn't even have one phone conversation. And actually I tried to set her up with a 3-way call with Charity because they're both vegans. And both times we tried, well, I screwed up the first time, but the second time, like she totally forgot. So like it clearly isn't important to her to talk. And at this point she is, you know, being pretty sincere about not wanting the business. And so for her to just get her nutrition, and she's smart, so she's like, I know how to make a shake, you know, like but then there'll be other people who want to like go through every detail. So I just feel like you kind of have to like have the ability to read people. I think that's the most important skill we can have in this business, is learning how to read what people are and asking them, right? Like learning how to read them, but also not assuming anything. So, you know, I don't know what other people do or have any.
I think it's good. It's important to know that when some people say, sure, send me info, it is their polite way of saying no. And it's okay. But that's why you then ask the investigating questions so that you don't end up wasting your time, right? You don't send them an ISA movie and then hope to hear back from them or follow up with them about the ISA movie you sent and they never were interested in the first place. You might get the, oh, I don't know, because they really were just being polite by saying no, by saying send me info in the first place. So that's okay. That's all part of the building the relationship and discovering if this is someone who really is looking for a solution that you can help. If not, you move on, right?
Raise your hand if you've ever said, sure, send me the info, and you knew you would never order it.
I do that all the time with the Usborne. They're like, can I invite you to the event? I'm like, sure, I just bought some this summer, so I probably won't, but go ahead and throw me in the party anyway. Like, I do it once a week.
So I know it for sure happens to me. Okay, so at this point, like in the enrollment stage, and you've sent the movie, I feel like going then back to the script and kind of going it like verbatim on the script, I think works pretty well. Like, what did you like about the movie? What questions do you have to get started? Like, that is one of the best questions you can learn to ask is, what can I answer for you to help you make a decision? Like, I say that all week long. What can I answer to help you make a decision? Because that's literally asking for the sale in a way that's not saying, do you want to order today? Like, because you're just asking them to make a decision. And a lot of times the decision will be, I'm not ready right now, or can we talk about this next week? It's really busy with the kids going back to school, or I need to look at my finances. Okay, cool. You know, and then you can say, like, when would you like me to follow up with you? Like, I think there's so many missed opportunities on our team and in general in this industry because people are not asking the right questions on the front end about what solutions they're looking for. And they're not asking the right questions on the back end about what do you need to make a decision? When would you like me to follow up with you? You know, things like that. So that's that. And then at that point, like, especially if you are feeling unsure, if you're getting a lot of value out of this call, then I would say your next step after the person has looked at the ISA movie and you've asked them, like, what decisions that you know, what can I answer for you to make a decision? Almost 100% of the time for me, and I'm 3 years in, this is when I offer a 3-way call. You know, like, hey, I'd love to get you on the phone, whether they decide to order or not order. I always offer a 3-way call at this point saying, hey, I'd love to get you on the phone with my friend Heidi. She's a runner. She might be able to help us with knowing what kind of products to order for you. Since I'm not a runner, it would be great. She can help us decide what to order. Or if they do decide to order and I just like picked for them what I like only offered, like, let's say they ordered a value pack, right? And then they tell me like, oh, I'm vegan. Well, I know to get them vegan shakes, right? But then I might say, like I did with Charity, like this girl ordered and then I offered the 3-way call. Hey, I want to get you on the phone with my friend Charity. She might have some ideas for you about B12 because people who are vegan sometimes have to supplement with B12. And so like, I don't know anything about that, so I'm like, let's talk to Charity. Like she might know. So whether or not they order at this point is when I offer the 3-way call. And you can obviously offer it any other time, but I feel like this is a really important time in the process to offer it. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. I feel like there's probably some questions that people are like wanting to ask, but you're scared to ask, or like I want you guys, this was like our Labor Day call. So we want to serve you on this call. Cause if you're showing up here tonight, like you clearly are wanting this. So, and we love you. Thanks for showing up. So what questions do you have or situations that we can help with? Don't be shy.
So if you have sent the movie or the Isogenics Health website and then gone back to follow up now, what would be a good follow, like now time has passed, so say it's been like a couple weeks, few weeks or whatever, what would be a good follow-up question to get back to that initial point to gain that trust and rapport?
Okay, that's a good question. And this is one of the things that I do differently with sending the movie. And so I think it actually says this in the script to set the appointment for the call before you send the tool. So most of the time when I'm like doing that whole, like, what are your health questions? What do you want to change? And tell me more about that. A lot of times that's when I will say like, well, hey, are you free to, like, when could we get on the phone and I can explain this more to you? Or I'm like setting an appointment and then I say, okay, I'm going to send you some info to look at ahead of time. So most of the time and that's in the script, like most of the time before I'm sending a tool, I'm trying to set up an appointment with them so that I have the call scheduled. And then at the end of that call or whatever, you just have to make an agreement with the person, right? Like if you let's say you don't do a call and you send the tool, you need to have an agreement from them. Like, hey, when do you think you'll look at this, or when do you want me to follow up with you about this? Like, so like if you're going to send the ISA movie, right, you've done the investigation part, you're going to send the ISA movie, just make sure that when you send it, you are setting up the next contact. And like I said, it doesn't go perfect for me all the time. I found that girl that I didn't follow up with from months ago, right? That happens. But if you can try to set it up ahead of time, then you know when to follow up, right? Because you're like, oh, they told me next Tuesday or whatever. But if it's been time and that didn't happen, literally you can just be like, hey, like, I just saw your name in my newsfeed, or I saw your name come across our, like, whatever, however you say you remembered their name. I thought of you. I say that a lot. Hey, I was thinking about you the other day and wondering when what you thought of that thing I sent you. I totally didn't follow up with you. I feel so bad. Like, just own it, right? Like, I forgot to follow up, or I wanted to give you a couple of weeks to look at it. I know end of summer is busy. Like, you can literally say it however you want. I usually just own that I didn't follow up in a timely manner, because then it kind of brings their guard down a little. But that's what I personally do. Does that help? So that was kind of scattered, my answer. Who else has an answer for Jill? Good. Okay, who else?
There's a question Barbie said she always owns it, I see. And then there is a question in the chat. If I can read, if they address a health issue, should we search isogenicshealth.net and learn more and have info ready to share? Okay.
And feel free if anybody else wants to chime in with answers. Like, this isn't just like the Gretchen answer show. Okay, personally, what I do for that is when people ask me, like, and Allison did this with me and Holly did this with me, and so I learned it and it was like awesome. I'm so glad they taught this to me. So if somebody says to me like, hey, I have diabetes, can I take Isogenics? I literally say, okay, go to this website, isagenixhealth.net, and type in diabetes in the search bar, and you'll find a bunch of articles about it. And the reason I do it is twofold. Number one, like what I learned from Allison and Holly, is it teaches them about our tools. And number two, it removes me as the expert as a nurse, right? And like, I don't want to be like liable for any opinions I give them. Like, I could lose my license. Like, so for me, it's like even more important I don't do that. And in the beginning, I was like trying to do that, and it was bad, no good at all. So now I like don't want any part of that. So I like am just pointing them in the direction that they need. And number three, they might find more information. They might get on that website and then they're like, oh, I wonder what it says about cleansing. Oh, here's a podcast. Oh my gosh, they have wealth creation. Like you don't know what they might stumble on. And so they could like, I know me, I get wormholed in YouTube big time. And that's because YouTube is smart about like showing me other things I might be interested in. So Isagenix Health does that too. They have stuff on the side, like stuff on the bottom. So that's what I do. What else? Anything else? We are over time, so maybe we should end.
Carissa asked one thing. How would you do that with someone not so tech savvy?
You could go find an article and send them the link. I mean, I'm assuming they're tech savvy enough to click on a link. So you could do that. You could print off the article, like
or you could meet with them if they live near you. You could show them, like you could say, "Let's pull out your phone and I'll show you." I've done that, you know, pull it up with them there and then show them the search bar.
That's good. And as we close, I do want to, because we're like out of time, but I do want to encourage you guys, like these questions you're asking are so important. They're so important because you have to assume that everyone knows nothing when they come in. If you have someone who's interested in sharing, you have, like, just like how when we walk into a job, we don't know what we're doing. I don't even like answering the phone at a new job because I'm like, I don't even know what I would say if they asked me a question. Like in the ER when the phone rings, I'm like, I'm not answering that. I don't know what anything is. So that's how it is, right? Like we all don't know. So these questions are so important because you're not expected to know. But if you don't ask them, either in the group or on these calls, like you're just going to continue to live in the dark. So seriously, like ask these questions in the Facebook groups. Like, hey, I have this situation. I don't know what to do. And the reason you want to ask them in the group instead of texting your enrolling sponsor is because you want more than one opinion. I promise you, you want more than one opinion. You don't just want the opinion of your enrolling sponsor. You want everyone's opinion. So keep on coming with the questions in the group.
And the odds are if you have that question, there's somebody else in that group that has the same question. So you're also serving everyone else by, you know, being upfront, having the courage to ask it in there and get all these responses because you're helping so many other people at the same time. So we appreciate those questions when they get asked.
And we have questions all the time. I mean, there's no bad question. No question too big or too small.
Totally. Okay, so I hope this inspired you to really dig deep with people in their hearts about what they want to change and make that process of the script like this big instead of this big with getting to know them and their problem. So, yay. That's it.
So wonderful. I'm going to like rewatch that recording. That was tons of value. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.